Hi, folks. My name is Girish Bali, the host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics for another week for season three. Today, we're going to speak with Victoria Rader, and we're going to go and talk about mental health, or I should say, mental disease. We're going to find out the differences between the two words, and we're going to find out who she's all about, what is she all about, why is she here, and she also has 8 books. Then you can go and search her as to what those books are all about. But then she's an amazing person. I did speak with her last year, and she's finally here on season three. So let's go and chat with Victoria to get to know her better. So let's go back to basics. Take care. At least.
Oh, this is good.
Okay. So I've done something different on season three, and if you've listened to my other episodes, what I have done in season three, and if you've listened to season three in the last 2 3 days, the format has changed. So, which means that I've already done the intro already, and what I have also done is I've added a small segment, a new segment for Back to Basics for season three, and that's a surprise. So, if you're not listened to season three, it's something new for you. So, it'll be great for you. So I've already done the full-fledged or introduction about you. So I'm going to do a very small intro, and then I'll bring you on. Okay. So I'm going to put you on mute for a few seconds, and then I'll bring you in. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Now please don't close the window. Okay. Okay. Hi, folks. My name is Girish Pelly. Thank you again for coming on to Back to Basics. As I have said on the intro, we're going to have a fantastic time today, and we're going to talk about, well, mental health and life, right? And we're going to go and talk about with our guest today, and her name is Victoria. And I hope in the intro I didn't really butcher her last name, but I know I did not because I really worked hard on it. And guess what? She had some PC issues earlier, and guess what happened? We're going to go and talk about that too, just to make fun of, well, fun of us, really. Actually, I told her to close everything out, and guess what happened? She closed everything out. Well, anyway, so why don't we go and speak with Victoria, get to know her better and who she is and what is she all about. So let's talk to Victoria. Victoria, how are you? Thanks for coming to Back to Basics.
Oh, well, see, I had to come back to basics. Had to reopen the window, so here I am.
Yes, thank you. Thank you again, Victoria. You had some lag issues earlier, network issues, and we kind of fixed it, right? And then when I told you to go and close everything out and close everything out, which means I guess us too. So that's what happened. But thank you again for coming here, and I'm very honored. And by the way, we talked to each other last year, like really early last year, and you finally have made it. So thank you again for coming here and supporting me. Before we talk about the topic that I've mentioned earlier, what does back to basic mean to you, Victoria?
Well, it means living from the place of fulfilling the fundamentals, with fundamentals being love, which is life originating vibrant emotion, is my acronym for it, or energy in motion. So, the very fundamentals to me are the fundamentals of life as we know it. Energy is, God is. Energy is constantly in motion without ever being interrupted. And when there's an illusion of interruption, there is a reality of a problem. So, to me, going back to fundamentals is seeking, finding, living, and vibrating from the purest frequency of love.
Wow, thank you so much. And I think I've heard this before when you and I were chatting. So thank you again for explaining that, and thank you for reminding me that. So before we talk a little further about that, and you know, what does interruptions mean to you? Because I think you mentioned interruption several times in that sentence. So what does that mean, if you don't mind?
I love English language. It's not my first language. It's my actually fourth language, and I grew up in Ukraine, spoke Ukrainian, Russian, Polish, and so. But I love English because the language is so descriptive of human experience. What do I mean by that? We call disease dis-ease without ease. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Dis-ease is the experience without ease. It's an interruption to the flow of love. Disability is an interruption to ability,
Hmm.
to the to ability to be in a place of that purest frequency of creation. And so it's fascinating to me because that is what interruption is. It's interference through our genetic, through our core programming as children, through common consciousness, through environment we're in, or if you're a spiritual person, through whatever luggage we're bringing into this reality
Hmm.
that gets in the way of the purest flow of the power which we have come to reclaim.
Hmm. Wow, that's crazy. Thank you again for explaining that because I never really thought of that the way you explained it. So you
Yeah.
did that so beautifully, and I think understanding different languages, I think you just kind of mushed it in into like four different ones into a blender, and then came up with this whole concept. So thank you again for explaining that. What does actually mental health kind of mean to you, if you don't mind me asking?
I think this is I always preface it with this is just one aspect. This is how one human being, me, sees it. So, and I always invite people if anything I say triggers you, it is pointing to a wound that is ready to be healed. For it is not my intention to act as a trigger. So, knowing that, prefacing with that, I think the whole idea of health as being broken down into categories
Hmm.
is one of the biggest issues of interruption of the flow. So when we say mental disease, we're somehow assuming that it is separate, that it is different from physical or emotional. And this segregation of the wholeness and integrity of who we are as human beings
Hmm.
is a part of a problem. You cannot heal the cause by addressing the symptoms. So, knowing that, and that's just my little world, right? That's how I perceive the world. To me, integrity is being in oneness with who you are spiritually, first and foremost. And then through that, yes, physically, yes, mentally, yes, emotionally. And we can go to all areas of consciousness on causal level, atmic, Buddhic, whatever. Or there's a different perspective. I'm going to separate and subdivide myself into subcategories. And when I do that, I interrupt back to that word integrity of who I am. And so it becomes virtually impossible to heal the cause because we're focusing on the symptom. So for me, there isn't just mental health, there is wholeness, there is health, and there are different aspects, windows that will allow us insight into the cause. That is what I look at mental health is. If I see that the shift is with disruption in mental capacity to perceive the world, then I say this is a window, not the cause. This is a window. Let's find where the trauma, where that disruption has happened for this human being, that they're disconnected from the wholeness that they are. And we
Hmm.
can find that it could have been physical trauma that when they were avoiding dealing with it because they had no help, caused, let's say, a multiple personality disorder where they had to disassociate. You cannot address a mental health because it's just a symptom. And then you can go the other way and say, well, what happened to a person who has a broken leg? Well, I've healed so I'm not the healer, I'm a witness of a healing. I've witnessed so many people heal through this innate power of wholeness. And I
Hmm.
know that if you hurt your leg, you have a subconscious program. I struggle with moving forward. So we need to find the subconscious pattern that prevents you from moving forward. Otherwise, we can put a cast on your leg 10 times. Notice that most people get hurt on one side more than the other. We can talk about that for 9 hours, but back to you.
Yeah, thank you again for explaining that. But let me ask you this, right? Because everyone says mental health, right?
Mhm.
Do you think when you just said mental disease, does that considered as a bad word, and we're not supposed to say disease because people they take disease in a different way, right? So how do you take that?
Just like I said, lack of ease. There's nothing bad about lack of ease. It's just a symptom. It does. This is what I think, and this is going to ruffle lots of feathers. That's what I do. I ruffle the feathers so I get to the heart that is beating so I can pour so much love into it. Okay.
Hmm.
We've become a society that is so concerned about labels instead of finding what those labels are hurting and harming and hiding.
Hmm.
Speaking five languages, I don't care whether it's an apple, manzana, or yablaka. I'm not going to argue what it is.
Hmm.
I know the essence of it.
Hmm.
And we are so detached from the essence of every issue, that
Hmm.
we're fighting about labels.
Hmm.
That's a disease of society.
Hmm.
Detachment from wholeness. Let's fight about the description of lack of wholeness.
Hmm. Wow.
I'm a little
Thank you.
passionate.
No, but thank you again, because we need to understand these things, right? Because um, people, they say mental health, but then you say mental disease, but then I think these are just labels are there, but the actual truth is just what you said, that find out the
Yes.
root cause of it, right? Is am I right on
Yes.
that? So
Yes, I don't see a person as lacking mental health. I don't see a person as mentally diseased. I see a powerful being that is there for a purpose and is for me to support, empower, and love. Period. Every human being.
so let me ask you this. So what is considered as a mental disease?
Well,
Because
I'm
I
not
think
a spe-
because I know what mental health is, right? But what is mental disease? Is it the same thing as just how you're labeling it with different categories?
Well, that's what I'm saying. To me, there isn't just mental. There's either wholeness or lack of wholeness,
Okay,
lack of ease of being, and then disease. And
got
then,
it.
however it expresses itself, it could express itself as um, mental, physical, or emotional lack of expression. I am not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm somebody who works with philosophy of metaphysics. I have a PhD in metaphysics. That
Mm,
is all I'm an expert of. Everything else is an opinion. So far, we've discussed opinions. Now, what I am an expert on is the energy flow. And
mm,
so, from that perspective and that perspective only, I can tell you that in the energy language, depression is the lack of expression of your true essence.
mm,
When you are depressed from walking the path you've come to walk,
mm,
energetically only, right? That's the only field I'm an expert in. Everything else is an opinion for me.
mm,
And so that's what I can speak knowingly on. Those are the thousands of sessions and clients that I have helped. I didn't help them heal depression. I'm not qualified to do that.
mm,
What I have helped them do was to find who they are, to remove the blocks from being who they are, and to express who they are. Now,
mm,
the symptom of depression has lifted, but I
mm.
did not address the symptom. I'm not qualified to do that.
Right.
So it's very important to understand that.
Yeah. Thank you again for that. So you and I actually chatted very briefly right before this call, right? We were just talking about we're not going to go and talk in detail about this, right? But let me just ask you this question here. Everyone around the world, including you and I, have gone through certain deaths in the family. So how do we cope that disease that you're mentioning, right? How do we move forward? Because now people, they think that this is depression, it's going to be a long journey. But how do we channelize to that energy and that motion that you're talking about?
That's a great question. I can do two things. I can describe what has worked for me, and that might be something that works for someone else. And then I can also tell you the tool that I have because I'm so passionate about it. So, for me, as you've mentioned, I have had death in family or in friends or in, has been one of my greatest teachers. Started at age 2.5, continued through my whole life.
Mm,
2013, I lost 11 people. Now I'm Ukrainian. Guess what? People are dying. So it has been something that has framed my perception. And what I understood very early on, going back to great Shakespeare, who said, to be or not to be, that is the question. One of the greatest metaphysical concepts. Our subconscious mind will create a reality either through the positive prism, I want to be healthy, or through negative. I don't want to be sick. They sound like one and the same, but they're not. They're two very different realities because the subconscious mind doesn't understand no. Right now, Girish, I'm going to say do not think about your refrigerator. Don't think whether it's silver or stainless or whether it's black. And
mm,
heaven forbid, don't think whether you have any beer in it. How did we do? We're all
mm,
inside our refrigerator. Our subconscious mind does not understand negation. It is going to follow the prompt of a thought. So if I think I need to lose weight, I'm gaining weight. If
mm,
I think I need money, I never have money. But if I say, what little do I have is enough, I'm abundant, I'm
mm,
grateful. In
mm,
any case, so looking at it that way, looking at the perspective of to be or not to be, Shakespeare said to be or not to be, we look at death, and our society, in its majority, is living not to die.
mm,
Most of us live not to die. And the gift that death has given me, it has freed me to live. Once you face death and it becomes your friend, you start meditating, thinking, pondering, praying, whatever you do. I did all of those to
right.
find to find the meaning of death, to
Mm,
understand fully and completely. It is there to frame the importance of life, the
mm,
luxury of life, and
mm,
the joy of life, no matter what.
mm. Yeah, thank you again. You know, when there's a lot of people have passed away in my life in a couple of years, maybe 2 3 years, or even 2009, and everyone knows this from season one till today. I constantly talk about my dad since 2009 that he passed away, which is totally fine. I should talk about it because that is something, it came from me. I am from him, right? So what I say to people is that instead of getting depressed on that day, how about celebrating that particular day? So, which means that I'm the luckiest one. Honestly, we all are actually, whoever has lost people, that we have 3 days to celebrate to that person. Let's take an
Mhm.
example of my friend who passed away during, he's a high school friend of mine. Okay. You have heard of National Friendship Day, you're
Mhm.
heard of National Brother Day, right? So, what I do is I channelize that. I channelize his birthday, I channelized the National Day, and then I channelized his death anniversary. So
Mhm.
I'm actually lucky that I'm celebrating 3 days versus 2 days. So how do you celebrate it? I mean, is that the good channel that I should be thinking of?
Very much so. I think it's very healthy and whole and empowering, and a reminder to you that by doing that, by honoring their life, you are honoring your life because the meaning is added to it.
Mm,
And the tool I was gonna mention to you, you know, working with my clients, I've discovered there were 90 aspects of grief.
mm,
90. And when I say grief, it's any perception of loss. It could be a loss of a job, loss of opportunity, loss of self esteem, loss of dignity, loss of a loved one, any loss that we experience, which makes a whole globe unified. We all are continually experiencing loss, leads to the experience of grief. And unless you release that deep experience of grief, you are going deeper and deeper and deeper into inability to quote unquote shake it off. It's
mm,
like you're carrying the heavy burden, and it becomes heavier and heavier. And what is anger or what is frustration? In many ways, it is grief that has been dishonored and not processed correctly. And
mm,
so, one of our things in Empower Me app, I have 90 aspects of grief where you first validate it. For example, what would be a good example for your audience? Feel distracted. I think there's so many people that are achievers and that are doing a gazillion things that are listening to you. And sometimes when you do gazillion things, it feels a little bit harder to focus fully and completely
mm,
because your brain is running on 900 things. That's at least
right,
the energy of the space I'm in right now that I feel.
mm,
You would never think of it as grief. You
mm,
would never think of it as grief. But this is the energy expression of unprocessed grief.
mm,
And so then you would have a visualization. It's just like 30-second release. You
mm,
validate, you become aware. There's a written visualization. You read, you visualize, and then you affirm the hopeful, the peaceful, the powerful statement. And
mm,
all of a sudden, your brain becomes clear. We're talking a minute. And so I'm very passionate about grief release because when I see people expressing through limitation, very often, if almost not always, it is unprocessed grief because
mm,
they're unaware they're grieving. But even
mm,
as I'm talking, somebody's thinking, oh, yeah, I didn't get that job. Oh, yeah, that I've been married for 17 years, but that breakup I had when I was 17, it's still in my heart.
mm,
It doesn't go away.
mm,
If it is not released, it
mm,
is blocking, it is making us feel heaviness. It's
mm.
just, that's what energy does.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again for explaining that. And we're gonna get to it much later, right after this. But we have just started a new segment on season 3, which is the rapid fire round, and there are some words and some sentences which I'm gonna be coming up with. Whatever pops in your head, what you think is gonna come up, right? It could be a word, it could be a story, a short story, obviously, and then and we'll go through that. How about that, Victoria?
It sounds fascinating. I'm all in.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. So the first word is going to be energy,
Hmm. Infinite expression.
motion,
Hmm. Privilege of life.
interrupted,
Hmm. Paused in progression.
language,
Limitation.
disease,
Lack of flow.
ability,
God's gift to us.
mental health.
Acknowledgement of God's gift of ability.
Okay. Uh, Subdivision,
Sadness.
categories.
More sadness. No, I'm just kidding. Organization. Let's go with organization.
Okay. Healing,
Life's capacity to continually restore itself.
mm, wholeness,
In the process of being.
grief,
Hmm. Heaviness of human experience.
Shakespeare,
My favorite.
shake it off,
Move on.
anger.
Privilege of a free mind.
Mm. The next one is Victoria.
Love her.
And the last one is back to basics.
What comes to me is freedom.
Mm. Yeah, thank you again for playing the rapid fire round for Back to Basics. I hope you enjoyed it. I
Loved it.
think it's quite challenging sometimes. Some people they get thrown off with certain words, but thank you for being a sport on there. So, Victoria, before we let you go, I have to ask you this question: is that there are a lot of people, and I think you've said this briefly right before the rapid fire round. You have mentioned that some people they just don't know how to, I guess, shake it off and get out of that grief, right? So we're not talking death, we're talking everything. We're talking body shaming, we're talking jobs, we're talking obviously deaths, we're talking many, many other things, right? People have stayed in that zone for the longest time, and people have advised them that it's okay to seek for help. It's
Mhm.
okay to move on even though that you have not forgotten them or forgotten any situation. So how do you channelize that? What do you advise to people like that? I mean, to your point, that is considered a disease, isn't it? So how do you get out of that disease?
The truth is, I transform, I don't advise, I equip and empower. So that's why it was interesting to me when you said language. I was surprised to hear limitation come through.
Mm,
very interesting because I love language, so it was bringing into my awareness the direction where we were going, right?
mm,
Because when you do rapid fire, on a subconscious level, it's really cool because there is no time.
right.
So there is a part of our exchange that was where we were going, and
Mm,
the answers I was watching what that were coming through me because they were framing what was going to come, and that explains to me now why language came as a limitation. You
mm,
can talk about a lot of things, but
mm,
talk is cheap. And so to equip somebody right now, if we have to limit the powerful healing to just the words, it's all about worthiness. You
mm,
see, we've been programmed that our mistakes or other people's actions that robbed us of dignity made us unworthy of being loved and being whole. So
mm,
my invitation to shift that is, put your hand on your heart and remember you are a worthy infinite being. And anything that has happened
mm,
that you deemed unworthy
mm,
was unworthy of you as an infinite being, not the other way around.
mm,
So let's do a quick reframe. It is not that what happened made me unworthy. It
mm,
is that that's what happened is there to remind me of my worth and that this is unworthy of me. That's the
mm,
best I can do without the actual, you know, neurolinguistic power interrupt or theta healing or any other technique.
mm,
Let's shift the worthiness.
mm,
Remember your infinite worth.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for explaining that. And sometimes we kind of have no words to go and help that other person besides that they kind of need to do it themselves. But then sometimes you do need some type of guidance or something to push them a little. And I think you've given me something to think about. So thank you again for explaining that. Victoria, before I let you go, let me ask you this: is there any book that really excites you? It could be or a movie or music or something that energizes you to a different motion or different energy or different shake it off type of situation. What are your
You mean
thoughts?
outside of the 8 I'm writing? You mean there are other books out there?
Yeah,
No, I'm
yeah.
an avid I'm an avid reader. I'm an avid reader. And if I had to say which book do I lean into, even if not rereading it, but going to its energy, it would be The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino.
Hmm,
It's an empowering read. It has scrolls of empowerment. I call them. It's not the language of the book. It
hmm,
excites me. It energizes me, and I think it does because it came from a man who was an alcoholic, who lost his family, who was
hmm,
suicidal, and was so far gone that he didn't even have a resolve for that.
hmm,
And that book came from him when he reclaimed his wholeness and became one of the most inspiring public speakers. He's gone now, but that little book probably in many ways for me represents that hope of complete recovery.
hmm,
So
hmm,
yeah, that book. And can I say something, Girish? Because I always go with the flow that's in me. For those people you cannot do anything for, we all have them in our life. You can
hmm,
do more than you realize. You don't have to be an energy master. You don't have to be a healer. If you simply say, I send love to you,
hmm,
without them hearing it, and imagine as if the ball of light is sent to them from you.
hmm,
If you commit to doing that 2
hmm,
seconds, morning and night, I promise you, within
hmm,
3 weeks, you will have experienced a minor or major miracle. So you can do much more without doing anything but learning to love. It's just what it is.
hmm. Wow, thank you again for that, Victoria, because I think I'm gonna go and channelize that too during the day, and I think I'm gonna listen to this episode over and over again, just for my sanity, because there's a lot of nuggets that I've learned in these 20, 30 minutes of chatting with you and understanding you. And I should even, I have recorded even the pre-call that we did. So I'm going to go and channelize both episodes for me. And I think I'm the lucky one here. So thank you again, Victoria, for that. But before you go, Victoria, and that sounds like your last words, but I promise you it's not. But but before you leave, do you have any last words to all my Back to Basic listeners and viewers? And how is your journey on Back to Basics too on top of that?
Yes, I do. I have a minute and a half little story. Story starts in 1400s. There is a sculptor whose name is Donatello. He's given a huge slab of marble and he's commissioned to carve a sculpture. He studies the marble. He says it is faulty. It has veins. He rejects the marble. Anybody's feeling rejected? We feel like the marble? Great. He rejects the marble. 50 years later, there's another sculptor whose name is Michelangelo, who out of that same marble sculpts the sculpture of David, which still stands 500 years plus later in Florence in open elements, not in museum. I got to see it with my kids. So when Michelangelo is asked by his contemporaries, how could you possibly carve this gorgeous sculpture out of this faulty marble? He says, I saw the angel in the marble and I carved until I set him free. So, my friend, you're seen by a great creator. Keep carving that marble. Keep carving that marble. That to me is the process of back to the basics.
Wow, thank you so much, Victoria, for being here, and I'm so deadly honored. You have no idea, and I think I want to be your friend even offline, just to understand your psychoanalysis. Besides just calling you for back to basics, and hopefully you'll have the another time to spend with us because it seems like um, these 30 minutes or 26 minutes that I've spent time with you I didn't really understand that that was just so nice, nicely energized. You have no idea. So thank you again for being here, and thank you again for supporting me on Back to Basics too.
Thank you. Thank you for creating such a powerful and nourishing and rebuilding, reforming, back to wholeness, back to basic. I'm grateful to be here. I truly am.
Yeah, thank you again. So, guys, we spoke with Victoria today, and we talked about mental health, didn't we? And we talked about many different things, and we talked about the shake it off. We talked about the energize and motion and everything else, right? But listen to the episode. Why don't you do that? Because I think listen to that episode over and over again. It makes me wow. That's all I can say. Wow. Well, as usual, as always, what do we always say at the end of the episode? Whoa, wait a second. We have a quote of the day from Back to Basics, like what we usually do. So why don't we concentrate on that? So here's a quote of the day, and hopefully my guest will like that quote. I keep moving ahead as always, knowing deep down inside that I am a good person and that I am worthy of a good life. Now, people, they don't say to themselves that they are worthy enough because we always keep on saying the negative things because that's what the human tendency does to us. But the thing is that if you listen to your heart and you listen to people like Victoria and people like, I guess, me, you will channelize a good vibe to your heart and to your soul. Now, as usual, as always, what do we always say at the end of the episode? Just like what I say on the line on the bottom there. Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and I will see you next time on Back to Basics. Take care. Hi, guys. Thank you again for tuning in to Back to Basics and listening to the excellent episode that we had today with our guest. You know, with your love and support, we do need you to at least rate our show, review our show, because it does make us stronger day by day, week by week, as I usually say on my episodes. And there are three things in this episode that it makes a hit for me, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. So guys, take care, God bless, and remember, everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and see you next time on Back to Basics.